The rain that night didn't just fall, it told a story. Each drop sliding down the diner's window whispered of loneliness, and memories that refused to fade. Inside, under faint yellow lights, Thomas sat in his usual corner booth, staring at the reflection of the storm outside, his hands wrapped around a cup of black coffee that had gone cold. He wasn't drinking it. He just needed to feel something warm. The waitress, Linda, passed by with her polite smile, the same one she'd been giving him every night for 2 years. Thomas nodded back, silent as always. The diner had become his ritual, a fragile bubble where time stood still. He came every night at 8, sat by the same window, and pretended to read the newspaper he never opened. 2 years ago, that seat had been filled with laughter. His wife and daughter, Lily, used to sit with him here every Sunday morning. Pancakes, orange juice, and Lily's giggles, those had been his world. But one rainy night, a truck on the same road skidded through the storm and took them away. Since then, Thomas hadn't missed a single night at the diner. It was the only place that still held their echoes. He stirred his coffee, watching the ripples fade like the years slipping through his fingers. The rain grew louder, hitting the glass with the rhythm of a heartbeat he no longer felt. He wondered if grief ever ends or just learns to hide behind routine. The bell over the diner's door suddenly chimed, cutting through the hum of rain. Thomas glanced up. A woman stood there, soaked to the bone, holding the hand of a little boy, maybe 7. They hesitated, dripping water on the floor, faces pale from cold. The woman's eyes darted around before she approached the counter. "Ma'am," she said softly, "I don't have much money, but my son hasn't eaten since morning. Could I get him something small?" Her voice trembled with shame and desperation. Linda looked toward the manager, unsure what to say. Thomas watched quietly, something twisting inside him. The boy's tired eyes reminded him of Lily, the same fragile innocence, the same hunger for comfort. Without thinking, Thomas stood up. The sound of his chair scraping the floor made everyone turn. "They can sit here," he said calmly. The woman blinked, startled. "Sir, I don't want to bother you." "You're not," he replied gently, motioning to the seats. She hesitated, then nodded. The boy looked up at Thomas with shy curiosity, a small smile forming. Something warm flickered in Thomas's chest, something he hadn't felt in years. He signaled Linda to bring pancakes and milk. When the plate arrived, the boy ate eagerly, joy lighting his face. Thomas watched him quietly, a faint smile touching his lips. The rain kept falling, but for the first time in years, it didn't sound like sorrow, it sounded like a beginning. The smell of pancakes filled the diner, blending with the soft sound of rain on the glass. The boy sat across from Thomas, eating eagerly, his mother watching him with tired eyes full of love and guilt. She tried to thank Thomas again, but he only nodded, his gaze lost in the steam rising from his coffee. For years he'd sat alone in that booth, drowning in silence, but tonight felt different. The sound of the boy's small laughter, the warmth of a mother's voice, something inside Thomas began to stir. "He really loves pancakes," Emily said shyly. "They're his favorite?" Thomas asked. "Yes," she smiled faintly. "It's been a while since we could afford something like this." She hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry if we disturbed you." Thomas shook his head. "No disturbance. My daughter loved pancakes too." Emily caught the sorrow in his tone but didn't ask. "Some pain speaks for itself." "Do you come here every day?" the boy asked. "Almost," Thomas replied. "It's quiet. Mom says quiet means people are sad," the boy said softly. Thomas smiled. "Sometimes, yes." For a moment, silence wrapped around them, not empty but peaceful. Then Emily spoke again. "We came from the shelter. It was full tonight. We had nowhere else to go." Her voice trembled. "Since my husband left, it's just been us. I'm trying to find work, but most days we keep walking until we find somewhere dry." Thomas listened, his chest tightening. Her struggle mirrored the hollow ache inside him. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "Don't be," she said, managing a small smile. "We're still standing, and sometimes that's enough." The boy wiped his mouth and looked up. "Thank you," he said. That single word hit Thomas harder than he expected. "You're welcome," he whispered, his voice breaking. Emily started to gather their things, but Thomas stopped her. "Don't rush. The rain hasn't stopped." She nodded and sat again. For a few minutes, none of them spoke. The rain softened, thunder rolled in the distance, and Thomas felt something shift inside him. Maybe kindness couldn't erase pain, but it reminded broken hearts how to beat again. Tonight, in a small diner on a rainy night, a lonely man found a reason to breathe. The next evening, Daniel found himself back at the same diner, almost as if his heart had guided him there before his mind could argue. The rain had returned too, tapping softly against the fogged-up windows, and the dim yellow lights gave the place a quiet warmth. He sat in his usual booth, the one by the corner, where he could see the door. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone. Across from him sat little Sam, grinning ear to ear as he slurped his hot chocolate, while his mother, Grace, watched him with a tired but gentle smile. Something about their presence filled the empty booth with life again. Daniel had spent years avoiding conversations, burying himself in silence. But tonight, words came naturally. They talked about simple things: Sam's school, Grace's struggles as a single mother, and Daniel's memories of his late wife who used to love this very diner. Every story shared felt like another brick lifted from the wall around his heart. Grace listened without pity, only understanding, and that alone felt healing. When Sam giggled and said, "Mr. Daniel, you should smile more. It makes you look nice," Daniel felt something inside him soften. No one had said that to him in a long time. It was a small moment, yet it carried the weight of years. Later, when Grace insisted on paying for their meal, Daniel gently refused. "Let me," he said quietly. "You've already given me more than I could pay for." She didn't understand at first, but Daniel meant every word. As they left the diner that night, Daniel stepped outside into the cold drizzle and watched them walk away, Grace holding Sam's hand, both of them laughing under one small umbrella. The sight felt like a memory he wanted to keep forever. For the first time since losing his wife, Daniel didn't feel like the world was empty. He walked home slowly, not to escape the loneliness, but to cherish the warmth that still lingered. That night he sat by his window with a cup of coffee, watching the raindrops race down the glass, and whispered softly, "Thank you." It wasn't just gratitude for the company or the laughter. It was for being reminded that kindness still existed and that maybe broken people could heal one another in unexpected ways. The diner, once just a quiet refuge, had become a place of second chances. Weeks passed, and the diner slowly became more than just a place to eat. It became a quiet meeting spot where three people, once strangers, began to rebuild pieces of their lives together. Every Friday evening, Daniel would sit by the same corner booth, waiting with a soft smile. Grace and Sam always came, sometimes bringing cookies, sometimes just their laughter. The waitresses had started calling them the little family, and Daniel didn't correct them. Maybe in a way it was true. Grace had found comfort in Daniel's calm presence. He helped with Sam's homework, told stories about the stars, and listened when she spoke about the hard days. For Daniel, these nights filled the silence that had haunted him for years. One evening, Grace asked quietly, "Do you ever think about starting over?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment, the question hanging between them like a fragile hope. "I thought my life ended when she died," he said softly, "but now I think maybe life just waited for me to find the right people again." Grace smiled, her eyes glistening. That night, as Sam dozed off in the booth after too much pie, Daniel and Grace talked for hours. About forgiveness, about second chances, about how sometimes love doesn't return in the same form. It comes back disguised as kindness. Months later, Daniel found the courage to open his heart completely. He invited Grace and Sam to his home for dinner, the same house that had been silent for so long. Together they cooked, laughed, and turned old pain into new warmth. On the wall hung a framed photo of Daniel's late wife. Grace noticed it and whispered, "She must have been wonderful." Daniel smiled and nodded. "She was, and she would have liked you." That simple exchange carried more meaning than words could hold. By the time the evening ended, it wasn't about the past anymore. It was about what they were building together. The emptiness that once defined Daniel's nights had been replaced by laughter and belonging. One rainy evening, almost a year after they first met, Daniel watched Grace and Sam arrive at the diner again. The same rain, the same golden lights, but everything felt different. Grace waved. Sam ran up to him shouting, "Mr. Daniel!" and hugged his leg tight. Daniel knelt, smiling through tears. "I told you, kid," he said softly. "You made me believe in good things again." As they sat together, sharing pie and stories, Daniel realized something profound. that kindness doesn't just heal others. It saves the one who gives it. The diner, once a symbol of loneliness, had become a place of rebirth. The rain outside no longer sounded sad. It was music, a reminder that life, no matter how broken, always offers another chance to begin again.